Privileged people seem to have this inbuilt sense of superiority, whereby they look down on others less fortunate, less privileged than themselves. They seem to think they would do and be better regardless of the environment they inherited. You can see this a lot in the global north, when people try to use things like statistics to prove their sense of racial, national, or ethnic superiority. They either use statistics without all the necessary nuances, i.e. the details, the actual evidence of what is causing the resulting statistic. Like the information that would give you a greater understanding of what the statistics actually are displaying, like poverty. As you can see in this racist ethnicity IQ comparison that's being used to imply racial inferiority and therefore white European superiority. The IQ test was actually first created for eugenic ethnic superiority purposes and was used in the 19th century to identify, to sterilize people, and do all manner of psychopathic things to those deemed inferior. And although it has changed since then, it still gets used by racists for eugenic purposes. The test itself is flawed if being used to calculate intelligence, as there are different kinds of intelligence. And anyway, people develop at their own individual pace. Some may be early developers, some late. Trauma also psychologically affects an individual's development, especially when the individual is in their formative years. Imagine the damage, the psychological harm caused over the last 400 plus years by the global north to all the melanin-enriched peoples of the earth, particularly to Black African people. Now think of how that would affect an individual's IQ test. We know how poverty affects people regardless of their skin color, race, or ethnicity. It does not affect them kindly. The IQ test calculates a specific type of memory, sometimes called working memory or recall memory. However, some people can recall a lot of written information without really understanding what they are even recalling. Is this intelligence? You need to understand something to know something, otherwise you just believe in something, whether what you regurgitate and believe in is right or wrong. Some people are visual learners. This means they store information visually. Some people cannot visualize at all, but can remember something spoken to them. Does this make one form of remembering intelligent and the other not? Do you see how asking a visual learner to read and answer questions might be problematic in trying to ascertain their intelligence? You see, the IQ test, like many academic tests, are generally unfair. I would say the whole education system is like an outdated factory that caters for one type of learning personality. 30 children, one teacher, one teaching method, time restraints, test papers that are designed not always to see how much you know, but also to trick you. Kind of seems like a factory for creating a social class hierarchy. These meritocratic systems based on grades, whereby students only have a set amount of time to get through the curriculum, are cruel and barbaric. It is not education. To educate means to liberate, and these systems do not define that very well. Let's move on. So another, I might say, inflated statistic is one being thrown around by the white supremacist, the late Charlie Kirk. One of the many racially loaded statements he made was that black people make up for 13% of US population, but 50% of all prisoners are black. Absolute lies. Black people make up 38% of US prisons. He does not mention that white people make up 59% of the US population and 57% of US prisons. I wonder why. So as you can see, he is inflating the numbers to imply the racial inferiority of black people. This is what makes him a racist. How many of these extra arrests were due to black people committing more crimes? How many were racism or bias from the police? I have already explained how poverty and thus how trauma affects a population. We should be looking at these statistics as nothing other than the projection of that poverty. Poverty increases crime rates, childhood poverty lowers IQ, which increases crime rates and thus creates more poverty, more trauma. Add to that the fact that black people on average are more likely to suffer more severe sentencing for the same crimes committed by white people and are more likely to be convicted of crimes they did not commit. And so, thank you to the late white supremacist Charlie Kirk for helping me educate our people on some examples of racism and systemic racism.